Okay, I wonder if I'm live right now. There's never a way to check that. I am live. What's up, everyone? Fuck. Okay. Now. Okay, let's wait for people to come here. What we're gonna do today is a bit of a Q&A. And let me know if the stream is going alright. I'm not sure if it is. Okay, Harmony is here. Hey man, thank you for joining. Let me know if everything is working correctly in terms of audio, video, and all those things. But yeah, I thought today we could do a bit of a music Q&A while I play some Zelda. So I'm gonna try to read the chat, answer to whatever questions you have in terms of music. And yeah, that's how we're gonna roll. So what I'm gonna do first, though, is I'm actually gonna share this live stream on my socials. But yeah, guys, how are you guys? How are you doing? How is this week been for you? For me, I've been working my ass off quite a lot on that new release. So I'm like, quite dead. Yeah, pop the questions. I'm gonna just give me 2 minutes, guys, to share this video around. And then we're gonna go with the questions. But if you can, like, share this video with, I don't know, on the Discord. If you're in Discord, tell the people I'm streaming as well. That would be amazing. And then I'm gonna get to the questions straight out. So just give me a second here. Okay. So how do I share this? I guess I'm gonna have to do this live, probably. Let me see. Just give me 1 second, guys. I'm almost done here. Just 1 sec. Okay, streaming some Zelda. Come ask me your questions. Okay, perfect. So I shared that on my Facebook. Guys, if you could share this on Discord, for those of you who are on Discord, that would be amazing. And yeah, let's get started. Let's do the Q&A, guys. So it's Q&A time. Ask your questions now. I'm gonna try to reply to them as I play some Zelda, which is gonna be very interesting. Let's go. So, sup? I hope you guys are all doing fine. I hope you. Wait, I lost the chat. Okay, here's the chat. Please have my children. Do you use FL Studio Player to score? No, not really, because I almost never score to picture. You know, when I used to score, like, I used to make trailer music. We would never score to picture. You just score before you even get the trailer. So you just write the music. But FL Player, video player is pretty good. Like, there's people who use it. There's a guy called Matteo Pablo on YouTube, and he makes very interesting tutorials and videos about how he scores with FL Studio. I think he hasn't been doing them in a while, but yeah. Okay, man, too many questions already. It's gonna be troublesome to play as well as, like, reply. What and when should I sidechain in trailer tracks? So it's not like a golden rule, like you shouldn't do it all the time. It's not like you're forced to do it, but you can do it in a few ways. Like, maybe you have little trailer hits that come along with Brahms, and you don't want your Brahms to take the punch away from trailer hits. Like, if both play at the same time, that might happen, and the hits might get lost inside the Brahm. So it might be a good idea to sidechain the Brahms to the trailer hit, so whenever the trailer hit comes in, the Brahm ducks out for a fraction of a second, and you get the punch. Another example, maybe using, like, I like to use sidechain on whatever is sustain elements, so long strings, long whatever, with the percussion as a source, so that when my percussion play, their transient, their hits, don't get drawn by the sustain elements because they get inside chain. But it's not necessary. Like, if you, this is useful if you're writing, I don't know, a cluttered arrangement, but it's not always like that. So, you know. So what I'm going to do now is, yeah, I'm playing this Zelda game, which I completed 4 times, by the way. But now I'm playing it with a bit of a different challenge, as to make it more difficult, and fuck, this is gonna be very tough. Basically, for those who played this, I'm gonna try to make it more like Bloodborne, which is crazy. Witcher 3 better game than anything else. Witcher 3 is amazing, but that was I have a thing, guys, where now I'm older, and it's very tough for me to actually stay on track with games. It's like Witcher 3 was an amazing game. The only issue is that it was freaking long, and I lost all my time into like playing the Gwent game and stuff like that. And, you know, it's just the story like 50 hours long, and it was like, after a while, I'm like, okay, I need to finish this game. Okay, other questions. Metropolis Arc 4, have you got a chance to play with it and do a review yet? No, sadly no, I didn't get Metropolis Arc 4 yet. That might change, I don't know. For now, I feel like I don't really need it. And by the way, sorry guys if I don't look at the camera while I'm replying. I'm also trying to play the game, which is crazy. But yeah, Metropolis Arc 4, the thing with the Arc collections is that each one is different. So, what does this guy want? Like Metropolis Arc 1 was for the super loud epic orchestral stuff. Well, I have no idea how to defeat this guy. Okay, let's just leave it. 1 was just for the loud orchestra. 2 was like for the quiet orchestra. 3 is for like clusters and effects. And 4 is for something like a chamber, sort of like centric. What do you think of Metropolis Arc 4? The ones who got it. Oh my god, I cannot even speak. Those of you who know and have Metropolis Arc 4, why is it so good? Tell me, sell me on buying that library. I don't feel like I need it. Compared to 1, which is like the absolute foundation of my orchestral sound, is epic orchestral loudness. So getting Metropolis Arc 1 for me was the game changer. While 4 is like, I don't know. I still don't think like I need. Up from Cinema says, been watching you like every day and just finished my first orchestral track for an advert. Man, that's pretty great. That's amazing. Nice. Blending metal guitars with orchestral awesomeness like Nightwish. That is something I'm still, you know, I still need to look into myself. Because like the problem when you do that is that the guitars, when you like, the reason why metal music sounds so massive is because the distorter signal of a guitar has a full frequency spectrum. For the most part, except for the bass. We remove the bass, but you have lots of mids and highs on your distorted guitars, especially mids. And the orchestra is the same. Like, it sounds full and huge because it goes through the whole like frequency range, especially in the mids. So when you have guitar and orchestra together, they will fight for space in the same exact frequency range. So one thing you can do, I suppose, I'm not sure because I still haven't really written. Like, I've wrote a few tracks with guitars, but not like Nightwish, not in that style. But if I wanted to write like that, I'd probably try to either EQ my guitars in such a way that they wouldn't clash with the orchestra, or I would probably maybe write for like I probably like either just write power chords or just write lead guitars and certain like with certain strings, like the lowest strings, for example, compared to the highest. Or maybe I would use clean guitars. Like, there's many things you can do. Nightwish seems to do lots of that, and they just don't care, and it just sounds awesome. And I'm curious about that. I'm not sure myself, but I suppose that in the orchestration, they leave space for their guitars to shine. I suppose like that's what they're doing on purpose. How the hell do I break this? Okay, so yeah, it's like, I guess the main idea is to leave space. And if I'm not wrong, I don't listen to a lot of Nightwish, but it seems like they use the orchestra mostly for like hits, like tutti hits and stuff like that. So the orchestra is not even playing all the time. It's just playing sometimes to bring accents. If I'm not wrong, I just know a few Nightwish songs. So. Fuck, there's too many questions. Sorry guys if I'm slow at replying and the game is not looking very entertaining because I'm just replying to questions. Maybe I should switch game. Cubase versus Pro Tools versus FL Studio. it's different for everyone. I can tell you why I like FL Studio a lot, personally. I haven't used Cubase Pro Tools a lot. In romantic mood, saxophone or flute? It depends. Is it a romantic mood for a real modern film, or is it a romantic mood for like a cartoon that is like medieval? Because like if you're writing medieval sort of music for a medieval world, like for example, if I was scoring a Zelda game, I would probably not use saxophone because it's not an instrument that you would have in these sort of times, you know? It doesn't, like, nothing rings a bell to like saxophones in fantasy stuff. So if you're writing a romantic scene for a fantasy film, a fantasy game, then use the flute maybe. But if you're doing it for a modern movie in our age, then yeah, you totally use the saxophone if you want to. Also, the saxophone, I guess, sounds more bold than the flute, which sounds a bit less like porn, and thus a bit more intimate. So you get a different result, and that's a good question, by the way, because it's a good reminder of how different the same thing can sound if you play it in two different instruments. So that was a good question. I like that. Norman, I'm doing fine. Thank you, man. It's been a bit of a stressful week, actually, because, like, I've been, you know, working on that Star Wars track. And nowadays, like, you know, being a composer, you have to work on the music. But being a YouTuber, you also have to work on the videos. And you also have to work on the video covers, like the cover image. And then you also have to work on all the text, all the promotion, the tags, the metadata. So all those things really take a toll whenever I have to release something. So this week has been a bit like that. And yeah, a bit crazy, honestly. So yeah, it's been an interesting week. But now I'm cool. Now I'm fine, I suppose. Okay. What is this guy doing? He's trolling us. No, I threw the sword. I didn't want to do that. Okay. Fuck. We lost. Okay. Other question. I love Zelda, but I think Breath of the Wild is boring as fuck. It's just, you know, his opinions. What they did with this game, in my opinion, was interesting. And this is true for like many music things. Like sometimes when musicians try to experiment, like to put things into context for those of you who don't know Zelda Breath of the Wild, basically this game was very different. And for the first time in like 20 years, they tried to make a Zelda game which was entirely different from the most successful Zelda game. Like most of the Zelda games that came after Ocarina of Time were trying to be Ocarina of Time to a certain extent. They weren't trying too hard to be innovative. And that also happens to us as composers. When one of our tracks becomes super successful, then we try to understand. It almost happens by mistake. The first time almost happens by mistake. You're like, okay, that track, I didn't expect it to blow up, but it did. How did that happen? And when that happens, we're like, okay, we need to emulate the same thing with all the other tracks that we write in the future. So we try to understand the formula that made that track successful in the first place, etc. And in so doing, we sometimes limit our creativity and what we can do. We limit like our growth as composers and stuff. And the bad thing is that sometimes by following formulas, our fans will actually be pleased. Like, you know, if you're a band like Muse and you release an album that sounds like dark rock, and you do that dark rock style all the time, people are going to associate with that. Your brand is going to become stronger in that. And people are just going to like it. But you, as a composer, will not necessarily grow that much because you're limiting yourself. So with Zelda Breath of the Wild, going back to video games, what they did is they were like, okay, we're not going to, you know, rely on the things that made Ocarina of Time so great. We're actually going to try to do something new. In so doing, they created this game, which is more, I don't know, freeform, ambient, whatever you can call it. But due to the fact that it didn't try to be something it wasn't meant to be, due to the fact that they tried to do one thing and do that one thing well, at the cost of not fitting in to the expectations of the previous games and the previous fans and all those things, they created, in my opinion, one of the best games ever made, which I'm doing a very bad job at portraying right now because I'm too focused on talking. But if you actually take the time to play this game, if you don't get romantic about, you know, the old Zeldas, because this is much different from the old Zeldas, then you will understand the value. And this is true in music as well. Like, you can of course write the same genre, same type of formula all the time, but then once you try to like experiment, you might stumble upon something that you never thought you could compose that's gonna open doors for you, and you're gonna grow as a composer because of that. I think John Powell mentioned that in a few interviews, the guy who scored the How to Train a Dragon movies. It's like, you know. Should all my trailer tracks be around 2-3 minutes long for labels? Or labels won't complain if I make 30 seconds or 6 minutes? No. Okay. Well, in trailer music, this, like all the things I just said now about Zelda being great, in trailer music, they don't apply. So like the idea of like, the idea of doing something different, etc. Yes, that's amazing for like your growth as a composer. But if you're working for a label, you need to think in terms of what the label wants, what the brand of the label is. What they ask you to do is often what they need you to do because of reasons beyond yourself. So as you work for, you know, when you work for a label, for someone else, or like if you're ghost producing or whatever, all those things, you are pretty much creating music for someone else's sake. Of course, you're paid in doing that. Just like the label pays you. Oh my god. Wow. But you have to do what the label asks you to do. If you don't, then for the most part, they will just delete your track and not use it. Not delete, but they will not use it. And you won't get the success that you wanted to get with that track. There's also an exception where maybe you do cross the boundary of what the label asks you to do, and maybe you write a genre which is not entirely exactly as they wanted it to be. Or maybe you do a track which is longer than standard, but maybe that track is also freaking legendary, and it's like, okay, I'm not doing what you asked me for, but I'm doing something even better. In that case, the label is gonna be like, okay, I like this, you know? In that case, but it's very rare. So I think it's best to just do what the label wants you to do. Add a bit of like your own flair to that. By the way, guys, I'm sorry if I'm slow at replying right now. I didn't appreciate or understand how tough it is to actually play the game while talking and looking at the questions. Okay. Hi, I'm from Russia. So you always follow a specific check shit when writing, or parties you trust an ear for music. I'm not sure I understand the question, but I'm gonna reply to what I understood. I don't follow cheat sheets when I compose. It's as I just told now, and I probably asked that before I went on the whole like Zelda Breath of the Wild tangent. But when I compose, even when I compose covers, I think people would never understand this, but I always try to explain it. Even when I compose covers, I'm not copying and pasting. You know, I'm inventing stuff. For the most part, some covers, like the 2 steps for my cover I did, was just a mock-up where I just took the original and rewrote it exactly as it is. But for the most part, I always try to, you know, to not follow cheat sheets and reinvent myself. There's value in like following formulas and stuff like that if you have to compose a lot of music in a specific style for a client, or if you just want to do one genre. That's amazing. But if you want to evolve as a composer, I believe that you need to reinvent yourself every so and so tracks you make. So I don't use cheat sheets. Although surely there's, you know, stuff that I repeat myself on. And that's only because it's my style. So maybe the way in which I use counter melodies. Shit. Oh, come on. Maybe like the way in which I orchestrate, or the way in which I use counter melodies, or the way in which I do transitions and stuff like that in my tracks. Maybe there's some elements in those parts of my tracks that repeat over time. Maybe there's some things I keep on doing. But in that case, I do those because it's my style. I can't resist the temptation of writing melodies in a certain way, or using chord progression in a certain way and stuff like that. But that is not intentional. That is just a stylistic thing that it's like your accent while you talk. You cannot avoid those things. So in that sense, that could be the cheat shit, but it's not intentional. As for intentional cheat sheets, I don't do that. Although, if I am, like, say, challenging myself to compose in a certain genre, like on my latest cover, which I released today, by the way, the Star Wars cover, the idea there was to first try a few libraries from performance samples, which are the staples of the track. Second, the idea was to write a God of War inspired soundtrack, or a God of War inspired version of the Star Wars theme. In order to do so, I had to go and listen to God of War soundtrack and notice what made that soundtrack sound like it does. In that case, that means I just studied its orchestration and I noticed the instrumentation, the way the chords are developed and all those things. And that is useful. I wouldn't call it a cheat sheet. It's useful if you want to emulate a style, if you want to nail another composer's style or something like that. Or, you know, another example of a cheat sheet might be, hey, I need to write fantasy music, just as I told before. Then you know, okay, for fantasy music, maybe if you use flutes and woodwinds, you create the, I don't know, sound or perception of sound of being in a forest. Because for some reason in our culture, we associated the woodwinds and flutes with elves. So if I use a flute to do my melodies in a fantasy track, that's gonna sound like fantasy music. But that's not a cheat sheet either. It's just using our culture as a way to paint a certain image with your music, and that's very important. It's instrumentation. So in trailer music, for example, we use a lot of the string spiccatos and stuff like that. Maybe because they feel epic. I don't know. So what I like to do though is to challenge those rules sometimes. Or if I have to use a certain instrument to represent a certain sound, I'll always try to at least use it in a particular way. So no cheat sheets for me. But instrumentation plays a good role. By the way, guys, please let me know if you're, you know, a spider robot. Please, if there's problems in the stream or if you think I'm like replying to, you know, being too detailed, let me know. Okay, wait, I lost the questions. I think you should try Birdie Strings first, share orchestral tools. It's better than cinematic strings too. I know Birdie Strings is amazing, but let me pause the game for a minute to reply to all the questions that are quite far. It's the best approach for making a track that would prevent me from hitting writer's block. I always don't know what to do next. I feel I'm trying to do too much and get lost. Brett Avery, the best thing you can do, and I'm not sure if that's the best thing you can do, but what I do, oh my god, what I like to do is to start a track with a basic sketch laid down. This could be a sketch written with piano or written with whatever instrument you feel comfortable using. Like the idea is to sketch the whole track, like put down the main idea of the track in a form which is like put down in its entirety. That doesn't need to sound amazing, but it just needs to be the whole track written down. That way, like the melody is a chord progression and transition. That way you will not get lost. And I do this sometimes with orchestras, sometimes with pianos. And there's other ways in which you can do this, you know, but that's one that you should totally try. Velko, favorite YouTuber, discovered 2018. Much love. Thank you. What's the best VST for solo violin? Wow, I heard good things about Cinematic Studio String Solo, or CSSSSSS. But in the latest Star Wars track I published today, I used solos of the sea from performance samples, which I like pretty much. Not huge, like, I mean, it sounds very dry, because I suppose with that library they wanted to give space to the composers to like tweak the sound like they wanted. Another solo violin which is not to be underestimated is the East-West Symphonic Orchestra solo violin. How I make the dry sound of cello made by Tinago in Prague show. I haven't checked out that track, but there's the Tinago solo cello library. Maybe if you reduce the reverb on that, you get the sound you want. Probably, I don't know. I haven't listened to one. Something to follow up to your video on backgrounds today. I often find mine to be too complex. How can you make something sound powerful yet not like a mess? Ooh. Okay, Mind Time Lapser, that's a good question. How to make something sound powerful but not like a mess? I suppose one of the things I like to do the most is to not rely on chaos, as I said in the background video, but to rely on how big your sound is in terms of frequency response. And I say this all the time, I'm sorry guys, but you know, I cannot, like, if something is true, that's just what it is. And I suppose, like, I remember when I struggled with this myself, it was because I didn't write for the full frequency spectrum. I only wrote for the mids, so like octave 5, and that's all I did. I didn't use many like strong bass lines. I didn't use high counter melodies and stuff like that. And I would only, you know, think about one register, and I would put everything in that register. And that way, I tried to get a big sound, and the more stuff I added on the octave 5, the shittier the track sounded. But I felt like I was doing my job. I was like, hey, I'm actually adding all the, all the melodies I can add, and etc. Why doesn't it sound so good? And the problem was that I wasn't taking account of the full spectrum. So when you like look at this Zelda background, for example, right? Looks so colorful. The sky is amazing. The leaves are moving, and the colors are so great and full and rich. That's how you want your track to be. If each color is a frequency spectrum range, you need to have the full range. So try to just write simple stuff, write simple melodies and stuff like that, but try to write it in many different octaves. Like span from octave 3 to octave 6 for your background stuff. And also put your melody on a highest octave as well. And that way you're gonna have a background which sounds full, not because it's complex, but because it spans out to the whole full range of frequencies. And you're also gonna have a melody which doesn't clash with your background, because it's staying on the highest range, or timbre. Timbre, sorry, that's how you say timbre. Play Resident Evil while you answer. I already played it yesterday, finished it yesterday actually, and if I did that, I would die. I'm having a hard time playing Zelda, which is a chill game. Imagine if I played Resident Evil. Maybe I have a more chill game to play. Oh my god, I can play Crash Bandicoot. That would be a very bad idea. That would be a very bad idea. So, why am I not watching rugby? I don't like sports. My favorite music director, I don't know. An all-in-one orchestra for contact under 10 GB. I'm not good with orchestra sizes. I don't really know the sizes. I like, maybe Heya. I don't know if it's like, it's probably more than 10 gigabytes. Any tips on film scoring? Been doing lots of Brian Tyler covers, and the elements he uses are genius. Tips on writing themselves and expanding on themes and like general layering counter melodies. I have never scored films, so I can't really give like tips on film scoring. Although I suppose like the tracks I make might sound like film scores. Like the Star Wars track I published today, again. One thing you want to do in film scoring is to play, how do you call it, leitmotifs or something? Where you have one theme, which is very simple, but you repeat it over time in your soundtrack, in some moments. So in my Star Wars track, the leitmotif is like da 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 da, that thing there, and it gets repeated quite a few times in many different fashions throughout the whole track with many different instruments. And in each instrument where I repeat that main melody, I'm pretty much doing a bit of variations as to hint to that main leitmotif, but to give it a new sound as well. So that is a practice that composers do sometimes. And as to how to do that, that's a whole different beast, which, you know, this could be a good subject for a video, but there's many ways in which you can do that. You can, if you like analyze other composers' music, you're totally gonna notice, hey, I can do it this way, I can do it the other way, etc., etc. So, okay, let's put this in pause for 5 minutes. Which instruments do you play? I'm not good at playing any instruments, although I like to play bass. The instrument I play the best is the bass, probably, the electric bass. And then I know how to place my fingers on a piano and on a guitar. And I learned Happy Birthday on violin. How to create emotions in a song. Oh, chords. Rely on chords and harmony a lot when you do that. Like if you want to create emotions. Because like the big, like chords dictate the context of what we are hearing. So if you have a melody which is playing, and if you play that melody on a, you know, happy, cheerful chord progression, it's gonna sound like the melody itself is gonna sound happy. But if you have the same melody and you somehow put it on a very low, dark, minor sad chord progression, then that same melody is gonna sound sad. So it's not necessarily the melody which gives you the mood, but it's the chords and the harmonies. And not necessarily saying, hey, I'm only going to use minor chords to create sadness. No, it's like a balance between dark and light. So using minor, major, diminished, augmented, all the kinds of chords together. It's not the chords you use, but it's how you combine them, how you like do the chord progression. And that helps into creating emotion a lot. Another thing that helps a lot is using dynamics and doing independent chord voicings in the track. So again, in the Star Wars track I published today, there's a bit where the strings do da 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 da, and what they do da 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 da. On that moment, the bass voice of the chord progression kicks in suddenly, and it creates a huge warmth of emotion. So that's the kind of stuff that can really help you in that sense. So chords, really, in my opinion. What's the difference between virtual instruments and real instruments? One group is virtual, the other is real. The one thing is that if you're using a virtual instrument, that doesn't, like, it allows you to do things that you sometimes would not be able to do with real instruments. So, you know, like playing super fast notes all with the same strong velocities, playing super long, infinitely long sustained notes on a French horn, or doing legato from, I don't know, C4 to C7 on violin. That wouldn't make sense at all. You cannot do that in real life. So, like, when you compose for virtual instruments, sometimes it's a good idea, most times it's a good idea to take into account, hey, I want this to sound like the real thing, so I might not do certain things. I might not do super long French horn notes. Doesn't make sense. What do you do to get a different track every time? For me, it's like I always compose the same style of tracks, and I find it really hard to break my patterns. That's not a problem. I mean, that's when I said before about the importance of doing different stuff, that is fine if you not do that. Like if you don't write music that sounds different every time, that is fine. If that's fine to you, that is fine. For me, I don't have to challenge myself to write stuff that sounds different, because for me, I cannot resist the urge of actually doing stuff that sounds different all the time. So for me, it comes naturally. I just think, okay, for this one track, the goal is not, hey, I just want to write music, but actually, for this one track, I want to write something that has guitars and orchestra in it. For this other track, I want to take one melody and repeat it for like 2 minutes without it sounding boring. And I'm going to do that by using God of War style. So it's like, I set a different challenge every time because I like challenges. I like discovering new stuff. I like to explain you guys about the stuff I discover. So that's done on purpose. It's not an issue, just something I do on purpose. I actually have the problem of saying, hey, I want to compose the same track all over time. It's like, I can't do that for some reason. So it's like different. But yeah, if you want to write different stuff, then like just decide that before composing the track itself. If you just want to write music that sounds good to you and you end up writing the same stuff, that's not a problem. If that sounds good to you. Harmony. What is the high range and mid range of the FL Studio piano roll? I just realized that in DAWs like Logic and Cubase, C4 is up in the high range, but FL Studio is in the exact same notes. What? No, that's not true. You know, when we talk about frequencies, that's not true. Hey Alex, can you talk about Two Steps from El Dorado song? They merge epic music with some Turkish theme. I need to re-listen to that one. But yeah, there's so many, like when I did the Two Steps from Hell cover of None Shall Live, I actually picked None Shall Live, which was one of the most simple tracks from Two Steps from Hell of late. And I picked that one exactly because like that. It was very simple. I was like, okay, this is simple stuff, but it sounds huge. Why is that? And that's why I did that one. But if I had to like, you know, do a proper Two Steps from Hell cover, El Dorado probably, but also like Amaria is a great example, or other tracks, like Creation of Earth and stuff like that. But you will be surprised, Wizard. If you want to create like an ethnic touch to your music, you will be surprised at how much inspiration it brings you and how much desire to do stuff differently it brings to the table to use instruments that you would normally not use. So if you just want to say, hey, I want to write something that sounds like a samurai, then maybe go on Impact Soundworks website, buy their like ethnic Asian libraries and say, I'm gonna use this for this track. The fact that you're now using Koto Nation or Ventus and all their ethnic libraries based on Japanese music is gonna make you think and compose in a way that is more catered towards that. So that already helps. Like, if you try it, it already helps. Our creativity is amazing. It will. If you also listen to a lot of like, maybe like we want to write Japanese orchestral music, listen to a lot of traditional Japanese music for a week and then try to write something like that with libraries by incorporating orchestral stuff, your brain is going to suggest you ideas that you thought were not possible if you do that. So I guess to reply to the question of someone before, Norman Duke, sorry. Norman Duck. The idea of composing something different all the time is also possible for me because I listen to a lot of music, like literally, like my Spotify account is crazy. It has like, I don't know, 500 hours of music and 20% of those hours are orchestral. So I listen to a lot of genres outside of orchestral more than I listen to orchestral music. And that also helps. Galaxy Bomb, I'm good, thank you for asking. Nicolas PL, I'm from Italy, but I'm in London right now. Do you use this plugin, Nexus 2? I only use it for a certain few sounds from the Hollywood 2 expansion because I grew fond of them, but I don't use it anymore. Back in the day when I started to compose orchestral music, that's the first one I got. And yeah, it wasn't very realistic, but it was good for me at the time. Now I'm like, I could never use this again. What do you find better, writing notes in piano roll or composing while playing the piano? I can only write notes in the piano roll because I'm not that good at playing piano. And that's not, I mean, it's not a good thing, I suppose. Like if I was able to play piano and play every sort of thing that I imagine and compose like that, I will be twice as fast when composing music. But there's one thing that needs to be said when it comes to composing like by playing, is that muscle memory is a thing. So you might end up in a stage where when you compose the same things, because your hands tend to move to the same chord progressions or the same melodies, same like shapes. So sometimes if you compose with your mouse and keyboard with the piano roll, the muscle memory element, that pull to do the same things, will not exist. So that's a great way, by the way, in which you can create something that is way different from what you write normally. Oh my god, too many questions. I didn't expect too many people like that. Okay. How often do you use chord substitutions in my progressions? See, I don't know what you just said, and I feel very stupid right now. Do you mean inversions? If you mean inversions, okay. I understood what you said. If it's not, I don't know what a substitution is. But inversions, I use them all the time. Probably without even noticing. Because the way in which I write chord progression is not normal. It's not like, hey, I write C major, and then I'm gonna go to the 4th chord in this scale, and then I'm gonna go to the 6th, and then to the 2nd. No, I don't think like that. Which I don't know if it's good. But what I do is I write voice by voice. So if I have a chord progression... Oh my god! Okay. No, wait, let's talk about this. Okay. So I will say, if I have a chord progression with 4 chords, what I do is, like, if I want to write one with 4 chords, what I do is not like, hey, I'm gonna write all the, one chord, but what I do is I'm gonna actually write all the voices for, like, all the notes for one voice of the chord, so the bass voice. Then I write all the notes for the 2nd voice, then all the notes for the 3rd voice, and all the notes for the 4th, if I want to add the 4th. In the end, I'm gonna have four notes. And in doing so, I really think of all the chord voicing independently from each other, which means it'll be easier for me to give different length to them, different rhythm. But I'm still trying, like, writing a way to build a chord, if that makes sense. And that's how I come with my chord progression. So that's why sometimes when you see like my MIDI of my chords and stuff, you see it's like weird. You know, it's not like one block chord, one block chord. It's like one chord, but there's like stuff. It's weird, but that's because I think in voices. And this is also true whenever I recompose other people's tracks. If I do covers, and I have to like listen. Like when I did the Brian Tyler Thor the Dark World, which I made exactly as the original, the way I dissect the instruments in my covers is actually by listening to every single voice. So, now I can't sing it because there's the music from Zelda. But yeah, I tend to like rely on voices a lot, way more than just the chord. So that's how I do it. But I have a tutorial about this called How to Write Chord Progressions by Ear, which might help. Anyone watch the new Alita Battle Angel movie? Not me. I don't know if I want to go watch it. I want to listen to the music from Junkie XL, but it's like... okay. What do you think about Cine samples? I like a few of those libraries, and Cinebrass is still legendary to this day. Like, lots of people use it. Oliver Orchestra for Violin is newer one. Still no portamento. But I think Symphonic Orchestra sounds amazing. Patrick Herman, when you can't continue a track, A, don't end chord progression on tonic, and B, create a second theme you can develop. Don't end chord progression on tonic. That's a great advice. I never thought about that. That's a great advice. The curve in span is burned in my head thanks to you. That's good. What do you recommend for making a track less boomy? Any tips? Yeah. Sorry. To make a track less boomy, remove all that is not necessary from the low end. And also don't try to like just have just a few things happening in the low end. Maybe a double bass, maybe some timpani, whatever, but not too many things happening on the low end. And also sometimes the muddiness of your track is also given by an upheaval of mid frequencies, so that also, if you do some mid EQ reduction, also helps. I started my study in Argentina. I'm studying musical composition. That's amazing. Thank you for doing this. No problem, right? Let's see how much we can roll. Do you have any formulae on how to write dark as fuck melodies? Yes. Go lower than you normally would. And that's very like... It's a bit of a like a... Not that much of a precise answer. But... That's what I found. Like when I tried to write a Bloodborne style track, my god, I pretty much noticed that Bloodborne is very dark music. So I tried to write a dark track, and in the first time I tried that, it wasn't dark enough. So I listened to more Bloodborne music, and I tried to like play the melodies on the piano, and I noticed, oh wow, this actually goes lower than I thought. You know, when I wrote my melodies, initially it was like, trying to be dark and being minor and those things, but I wasn't trying too hard. I still wanted to like, I don't know, the music to be pleasant. So when you want to write dark melodies, try to go lower, Try to go lower than you normally would be. It would go in semitones, I mean. Also, try to make use of intervals that you normally would not use. Try to use lots of diminished chord progressions and stuff like that, because that's how you get the sound that is very unpleasant but still musical. And yeah, that's a great way to do this. Man, I think I should change game. Do you have, okay, how much you make a year composing? How much do you, what? How much do, what? I lost the questions. How much do you make a year composing? My income is not only on composing, obviously. It's also on teaching. Because of this YouTube thing. And the private lessons and all those things. And the Evident affiliate and all those things. So it's not like, this wouldn't be an, yeah. I also have a Patreon page. And there's many things. It's not only composing. So honestly, you're not asking the right person. But, also depending on what you compose, that answer changes drastically. When I composed certain music, there was a certain income that came from that. If you compose film music, that's gonna be different. If you compose indie video game music only, it's gonna be completely different. If you compose royalty-free music, it's gonna be different. Point is that there's ways to make a living at music. There's many different ways, many different routes. Lots of people doing a living with that. And yeah, you can totally do it. Hey Alex, I was always curious how long on average does it take you to write an original orchestral piece? I found I struggle severely with speed, constant rewriting and whatnot. So, okay, so the time it takes me to compose a cover and original piece is not different. Because, as I showed in today's video about the background in orchestral music, my covers have a lot of original content. It's like 20% cover content, meaning like I use the main melody or maybe I borrow some chord progressions, but the rest usually is like entirely me. When I compose like original music for myself, I'm way less critical because I'm not like, hey, I need to pay respects to the original composers. I'm like, hey, this is just me. Who cares if it sounds like shit? So in that case, but in both cases, I go from like spending 20 hours to 50. On some tracks, like once every 2 years, I will spend 200 hours on a track. And that would be the track where I try to put all the things that I learned in the last 2 years together to see how much I've grown. And that's where I spend 200 hours. Happened 3 times or something. The entry phone just sounded. Okay. Hi Alex, do you have any tips for an up-and-coming film composer for connecting with film trailer makers? I wish I did. I'm not very good at social stuff. But Karate Kid, I suppose I can tell you what not to do. Don't go to those people trying to take advantage or trying to get. Go in those, relationships, conversations by trying to give, by trying to be a decent human being. You'd be surprised at how little, how few people actually do this. When I connected with my composer friends, with the trailer, music labels, and all those things, it was always on the basis of, hey, how can I be of service to you? Or on the basis of like, hey, let's just be friends. So there's something to earn, in my opinion, if you just, enter a person's good books, because people like to work with their friends. So like having skill is one part of the deal. You also need to be pleasant to be around and be of service. Think about what you can add to others. If you're talking about filmmakers, maybe get in touch with filmmakers that you think made some films that would actually profit from your music. Because maybe you only write horror music and their films are like horror films. Then it makes sense to go and like bond with them and think, he could use my music. But if you compose horror music, don't go looking for a gig for the next Winnie the Pooh movie, because it doesn't make sense. And that sounds like stupid advice, but you would be surprised at how many people I see trying to fit somewhere where their music would obviously offer no value at all. And that's not to speak of the value of the music, it's just to speak of like context. So try to like fit your own niche. Try to be strong at it. Like it's also good to be strong at one thing, like to be a specialist rather to be like being like a master of none, like how do you call it? Jack of all trades, a master of none. I think it's much more interesting if you can do one thing, but you can do it very well. In that case, whoever needs the composer for that specific thing is gonna think about you, compared to thinking about all the other people who are average at everything and not special at anything. So those are a few advices, but if you stumble upon more knowledge about this, I'm sure you're gonna make videos about that. What do you think about Albion 1, which is the most versatile library of them all? I never tried it. I just heard good stuff about it, and I heard the demos, and it's pretty good, but yeah, these guys won't leave me alone. It's pretty good, but it's like, damn it. I hate these guys, and I actually want to change game now. But yeah, it's pretty good, but there's other alternatives. So there's Jaeger, there's Metropolis Arc. I suppose Albion 1 is amazing for if you want to have a soft sound. It also has synthesizers, by the way, so that's a plus. As for let me actually play Crash Bandicoot, by the way. Let's switch to Crash Bandicoot. As for which one is the best, I don't know. It depends. it depends on you. Like if you want to write epic music, super epic loud orchestral music, then maybe you better get that Metropolis Arc 1. If you want to write quiet stuff, Albion 1. If you want to write modern hybrid trailer music and want to have trailer effects, Jaeger for sure. Tell me about Bollywood music. I never listened to it once, and maybe I should. Everyone talks about it, but people who ask me about Bollywood music are oftentimes Indian, and that's a different culture.
Presents a smashing blast from the past.
Nice. I don't even know if I want to play Crash Bandicoot. I just wanted to play something which wasn't Zelda because I was getting very distracted. But yeah, I don't think Bollywood is the thing I want to do. Nice. Metal Gear Talk. Sup, how's it going? Love your last tutorial video. We love more of those videos. Okay, nice. Okay.
It's Crash Bandicoot.
Let's go. Crash Bandicoot. Okay. I think I'm through the main questions now. I think, or not.
Dr. Cortex, we haven't.
I suppose. What are you eating? This. It's like there's a random snack I bought from the shop downstairs. I thought I saw you while walking around, but I wasn't sure if it was you, so I just stared at the person really hard for ages while walking past them. Lenny. You could have said hi if it was me. I don't know. Was this in London? But yeah, I'm a very distracted person, so it's like maybe I didn't notice. Chords that aren't part of the key. Maybe that refers to the question I replied before. Triton substitution, etc. from Jay's theory. Okay, I don't know what that is. If you open a template in FL Studio with a lot of instruments loaded, how long does it take to open up? My template takes about, I suppose, 30 seconds to a minute. But that's because I have an SSD, and that's because I'm on my laptop. But if I was on my desktop, that would take even less because of SSDs. Okay, Jay, sup? Hello, I have a question about applying articulation for different libraries in BR. So Articulate, are you making a preset for the whole library or for each instrument in the library you make one? I do one for sometimes like in Metropolis Arc. High strings, there are different articulations from low strings. There are different articulations from low brass and high brass. So I do one for each group I find. It's Zelda, but does anyone know what game Alex is playing? Play Apex Legends. No. 20-40 hours. Going a month through of writing one piece is still nowhere near the quality of virtually anyone else's piece of music. Don't do that. Numeric, don't. I forbid you to do that. When you're just beginning to make music, let me hit this one. When you're just beginning to make music, you cannot afford, and it's not a good idea, to spend all of your time on one track hoping that one track is gonna be the track that puts you on the radar, everyone. That's not how it works. When you're just beginning, what you need to do is you need to write a lot of music. Like a lot of music. Because any music track, any piece of music you're gonna complete is gonna make you a way better composer than you were yesterday. Because you literally know like so little, if you're beginning, you know so little, that just anything, any piece of value, any piece of knowledge will be a game changer for you. Once you start to become way better and you notice, okay, I know how music is made, but I'm struggling with this specific aspect of my music, you can actually decide to spend maybe a whole track, write a whole track with the goal of actually focusing on one thing. And it's fuck. I hate this game. And as you learn it, until you learn that one thing, you don't stop. That's good. But if you're just beginning, please don't do that. Where you spend a month to do one track. It's the worst waste. It's the reason why many people take a lot of time to grow up in terms of sound, and it's the reason why I grew up fast in terms of sound. I didn't do that. I didn't get attached to one track and spend 2 months on one track. I do that once every 2 years. Once every 2 years. If you do that for every single track you make, no, it's not gonna work. So like it's also very frustrating because you stop noticing all the improvements you're doing and stuff like that in your sound if you just focus on. I get very impatient when I spend 2 weeks on a track. Imagine a month. Now, that's not to say you should have fast writing music either, and you should just do things like blah, 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 whatever. I wrote it in an hour. No, like, but one thing you can do if you actually want to spend that much amount of detail is to write a track, spend a week on a track, then spend a week on another, and come back to the main track the week after. So you're doing like this back and forth. You're going to pretty much improve on different things and not spend too much time on one track, which is not good, in my opinion, to do. Man, I hope I don't get any copyright problems by streaming Crash Bandicoot. Okay. A few weeks ago, I wrote something in a comment, but I do not know if you read it, so I take this opportunity to tell you, please read it to see if you can help me. You can, Jose, you can ask me the question here, because, you know, it's hard to go back to look at all the comments. Do you have Dark Souls? I have Dark Souls 3 on Steam, but I still haven't begun it. I'm not a huge fan of Dark Souls. I'm a huge fan of Bloodborne more. That music was awful. What music? Have you ever tried to compose an 80s style score like Stranger Things OST? Not yet. I might. I don't know. It would be great if you did something like the soundtrack of Total Recall 2012 by Harry Gregson Williams. I don't know that movie. And I tend to only like to write stuff about the games or movies I like. So yeah, that would be problematic, I suppose. Hey guys, keep the questions coming, by the way, if you have more, of course. So with the effects of robotics and all that, I have something in my mind and I wanted to know if you can do something like that. Very good, your channel, congratulations. Effects of robotics. So that's okay. I don't know. I'd love to like make, if possible, like a Deus Ex inspired soundtrack, which is like very futuristic, but still organic to a certain point, cinematic. That's a great example. And that's one genre I would totally do. But Total Recall, I don't know, never watched it. Another aspect of development of fundamentals is to study music for people you like. Yes. I find that when making orchestral music, distractions actually help me be more creative, and it helps me not to be a perfectionist. What's your thoughts on that? That is true. Metal Gear Attack, that is true. When I want to avoid being too much perfectionistic, I will often either open YouTube on another tab or listen to a podcast while I compose. I don't listen to other music because that's mental, but I listen to a podcast or a YouTube video or whatever. And that keeps half of my brain busy so that half of the other brain can work without the other half criticizing. But only in the beginning. When I have to like really narrow down and do like detailed work and mix and whatever, I will not get distracted. But in the beginning, when I need to like bring out the main idea, I will do that. Last game, what are you referring to? Ciao, what do you think about these two as orchestral libraries compared to other? I think if we're talking about symphonic orchestra, that one is a bit old. It sounds old. As for Hollywood orchestra, it sounds okay, but it's very politically correct. Because the sound you get with Hollywood orchestra from East West is like the actual Hollywood sound from the 90s, where all the music was like very dynamic. You remember like the John Williams scores from Harry Potter and stuff like that? Or the Home Alone soundtrack and all those things, like very dynamic orchestral music. For that stuff, Hollywood orchestra is amazing. But sadly, that's not what most of us are doing. What most of us are doing now, at least people on my channel, like because I write that music myself, so I suppose people who watch my channel do that, is loud orchestral music and stuff like that, you know? Epic, gigantic, sometimes sort of like sausage-looking orchestral music. And for that kind of music, Hollywood orchestra might not be the best. Because again, it's very dynamic and quiet and politically correct. It would be probably much more interesting and ideal to use a library such as Metropolis Arc 1 or Jaeger and all those libraries like that, because those are louder, inherently, out of the box, and it just makes it easier to get the epic sound. That doesn't mean that, you know, the East-West libraries are shit. It just means that they're harder to use if you want to create a huge and massive sound. But you can totally do it. But I would go for, you know, something that sounds massive in the way it was recorded, like Metropolis Arc 1. Let's do another question after this. I thought this was a course video. It says in the description, I reply to the question when I play video games. Maybe you cannot read. I don't know, like, in your experience, do AAA publishers tend to get annoyed if you keep failing to deliver on feedback and change the track as they'd like it? Of course. Imagine being at a restaurant, Aaron, ordering like a margarita pizza with no ham because you're vegetarian. And they're like, oh, okay, no, we're going to change your mind. We're going to bring the best ham in town on your pizza. And they put the ham on your pizza like, I don't want pizza with ham, I'm vegetarian. And they're like, okay, no, okay, we're going to try this salami now, which is like the best in Italy and Italy. And you're like, no, I'm vegetarian. So they keep on bringing you the wrong thing. And it's wrong for you because you know, like, it's your own reasons why that is wrong. And if they keep on doing that without listening to you, eventually you're just going to, you know, step up and change restaurants. So you, in this example, are the pizza guy. And you have a client which is telling you, I need something in this specific style, in this specific way, for this specific reason. If you say, okay, you don't want ham on your pizza, you're vegetarian, you say, okay, I'm gonna bring you something that replaces ham, but it's vegetarian, but it's a bit of a similar taste. In that case, the person who might have been oblivious to the secret ingredient might tell you, oh, thank you, you let me discover something new, while not crossing the boundaries of what I needed you to do. So if you want to do it like that, you know, if you like don't reply, like if you don't follow a label's briefing to a T, you introduce new stuff, but you introduce new stuff that is relevant to what they want and that they didn't see coming, but it's actually helpful, then that's amazing. That is what is gonna make you like indispensable for labels. But if you do your own thing as they ask you to do something else, you're just gonna be like the guy who brings meat to the vegetarian person. And eventually they're gonna be pissed off and maybe they're gonna think like, what the fuck, you're kidding me? Like, I don't have time to lose. So there's a good measure in that. Now, more questions popped up. I really wonder about your headsets and what do you think about them? I actually switched to better headsets and I'm shocked my mixers sound like shit. How can we mix if we can't hear them in $10,000 monitors? I never mixed with $10,000 monitors. In fact, my monitors, if you mean my like speakers, are pretty shitty, you know? Before, like now that I moved to London, I changed them to something newer, but it's still quite shitty. Because I didn't get like costly monitors because I don't even know how long I'm gonna stay in London. I don't want to spend $600 for monitors and then having to move them to Italy and I'm like, no. So I never had expensive monitors. I always had decent monitors though. So what you want to have is to have fuck this game, man. Is to have either monitors or headsets that you can trust because they have a flat frequency response. So something that is not like doesn't give you a wrong interpretation of your sound. So before actually doing that, I used to compose with Monster Beats Studios. Don't judge me, guys. I was young, okay? I was taken by the design and how loud they sounded and how much bass they had when I listened to Zed and Medium with those things on. It was amazing. It was amazing. But when when I started making orchestral music, I noticed, hey, maybe I need something more balanced. So I got this pair of Bear Dynamics, which is the one I'm wearing right now, and they have a much flatter frequency response. And I noticed then that my tracks were mixed like shit, and my Monster Beats didn't allow me to hear how bad they were because they were unbalanced in the way they make you perceive sound because they're bass boosted and everything. So just get something with a flat frequency response. And as for headsets, I recommend the Beyer Dynamics DT770, which is the pair of headphones I'm using right now, and I always use, but they don't cost $10,000. So you don't need $10,000 for that. Okay. Hello, David. Hands Sand Spider. Hey Alex, can you talk about copyright issues you have run into when upload covers? I have never run into copyright issues because my covers are all licensed anyway. Like I upload them on DistroKid, which is this service which I talked about. Basically, they will license your. Oh my god! They will license your covers, so when whatever earnings you do out of those covers is partly sent to the original copyright owners. So that's that. As for YouTube, something funny happened once where I made a Pirates of the Caribbean cover. And this one was a mock-up more than a cover. So the goal was to make it sound as close to the original as possible. And I managed to do that so very well with my VSTs that the YouTube content ID or the algorithm that detects when you use copyrighted music detected me using that Pirates of the Caribbean track. And there was a comparison audio where it compared my version with the original version. And it sounds very much close, but I composed my version with VSTs. I nailed it so well that apparently the system thought it was the same track, but it's not. And in that case though, what happened is that pretty much my track, the monetization for that track is now shared. It's now shared between me and like Warner Brothers and stuff like that. They got part of the monetization, which is fine. So never had problems with that. And this game is much tougher than I remember it to be. When I was little, I used to play this without ever losing. Now I'm like dying every 5 minutes. Okay. Wait. Wow, guys, by the way, thank you for those of you who are staying here, even though I'm like, you know, this is a pretty shit live stream, to be honest, because I'm being distracted, both in terms of playing and in terms of replying. So I'm replying half-assedly and playing half-assedly, which is not good, but, you know. Now, another question. Lowering the volume game. Oh, yeah, for sure. Okay. Now it should be lower. I didn't know it was so loud. Use percussion again to feel your inspiration. Alex, how do you deal with overwriting? I always end up with tons of tracks which become impossible to mix. Don't do that. Just actually try to challenge yourself to write. Oh. Okay. Challenge yourself to write music by using just once. Try to challenge yourself to write good music by using the least amount of tracks. That is gonna make you think about what is really fundamental in your music, and it's gonna make you lead to understand how not having this is weird because I always advocate about using details and adding details, but you also need to avoid overwriting indeed. So what you need to have is a conception, like an idea of what is really fundamental in your music. So try to write a piece of song, a track that uses the least amount of instruments possible while still sounding cool. And that is gonna give you an insight on how, like, what is fundamental in your music and what is not. Also, if you do happen to have a track that is full of tracks and you cannot do anything about it, which, like, that's something that happens to me as well, then try to mix them in groups. So organize your mixer in such a way that all your string instruments, for example, go to the same group bus. So then if you apply an EQ to that group bus for the strings, it's gonna be applied to every string instrument. That way, you're gonna be able to mix in groups and just tackle the first mixing issues on a whole group. And then if you want to narrow down a specific string instrument, you can do that. But being able to mix a whole group together is gonna like shorten your mixing process by a long shot. Okay, other question. Just give me a second here because... Okay, now. What do you think about the brass library of Native instruments? I'm not so happy with it. Can you suggest me something which has good horns? Thinking about the S2S at the moment. Soundbar, abonnement. Are you French? That's not an Italian. It's not an English word. It must be a French word or Italian. As for brass libraries, the ones I use are Metropolis Arc 1 for the loud brass, because like for loud brass, Metropolis Arc 1 I find it to be amazing, and the staccatos are on... Whoa, I got the gem. The staccatos in Metropolis Arc 1 are on point, and this is something that sometimes I notice in certain brass libraries, is that you play staccatos and they're slightly off beat, while with Arc 1 it's on point, and I like that, and marcatos are amazing. But Metropolis Arc 1 cannot go quiet. So to complement that, to have something that can go quiet, I bought Century Brass from Dio. And, you know, it's not the best library ever made, but it's still pretty good. So there's also Cine Brass from Cine Samples, which is still legendary, that I recommend. I hear it in many tracks, I'm like, fuck, this is actually pretty good. Okay. How did you get into composing? Wait, I lost the question. Where is the question? Okay, how did you get into composing? What were you doing before, and what led you to do it? Grazie. So, Joe, before composing, I studied IT in high school, and I was working. Like the moment where I start to compose music is the same moment when I started to work, because I finished high school. And the same moment I went to uni. So I started uni to study IT, information technology, and started working at an office as a web developer, and started composing music. And I was like 20 years old at the time. And after a few months, I dropped out of uni, and I left my day job at the IT office, because they put me in the condition to say, hey, you either work here full time with overtimes and stuff like that, which means no time for music, or you cannot work here part-time anymore. So I had to make a choice, and I chose to leave, and I took a sabbatical to only make music. And after that, things happened with music, and I started getting some results. Oh my god. Okay. And I kept doing it. But before that, again, I was 20 years old, and before that, all I did was I didn't play instruments. I didn't have a musical preparation background at all, which is lame, kind of. But it's really good that I went from nothing to where I am now. And the way, what I did as a kid was just listen to a lot of music, and that sparked my desire actually to compose music. I remember when I was 8 years old, I used to listen to the MIDI. I mean, the MIDI in terms of done with sound fonts version of the Final Fantasy soundtracks, like sound fonts, guys. And I listened to that, and I was like, it's almost as if I was a guy listening, like a metal guy listening to, I don't know, like the biggest metal band. I was head banging, guys, to sound fonts. I remember that very well. I head banged to sound font guitars and orchestras because I freaking loved the Final Fantasy music and Kingdom Hearts and all those things. And I remember downloading a program that was like a keyboard on screen where you could push the keyboard, the keys with your mouse, and it would produce sound and you could write music. And I tried to write music for that. I remember there was a phone, the Nokia 3310 or something, which had a ringtone maker that allowed you to make ringtones. And I composed in that as well. So those were my first few experiences with music. But when I was little, I used to think, oh my god, okay, how do I beat this guy? Good. Oh, okay. When I was little, I used to think that unless you were born with a crazy talent, you wouldn't amount to anything. And I wasn't gifted, musically speaking. I couldn't play, I couldn't sing, I couldn't do anything. I liked to compose stuff, but it wasn't legendary. So I thought it wouldn't make sense to actually follow this as a passion. And then when I grew up, I noticed that I was probably wrong in thinking that. And in seeing lots of producers and composers coming out of nowhere, I decided to join their ranks and try my hand at that. And my goal was to actually be the living proof that you can actually do this without being talented or without knowing how to play, without studying music. You can actually just wake up at 20 years old and say, hey, you know what, I want to compose music and do this for a living. And I said, I'm gonna battle myself. And I dropped everything to follow this back to with the most serious of intentions and see it through. And that's the way I became a composer, and that's why I became a composer. I also would love to score a Final Fantasy game, that's my ultimate goal. But I mostly wanted to do this to show people that they can do whatever they want to do in life, if they only believe in it. So that, oh my god, that whole thought process became a thing in my mind as I became older. Because when you become 20 years old, you start to ask yourself, hey, What is my role in this world? What do I want to do with my life? Some people mindlessly go into day jobs and that's all they end up doing, which is good because then maybe their dream is to build a big, a nice family and that's all they focus on. But I found many of my friends at the time were just thinking about, hey, yeah, I just got a day job now. I'm going to have the money to go out and clubbing. And I was like, this is not the life I want to live. So I asked myself the serious questions like, hey, if I die, what do I want to live on this planet? I want to leave inspiration. I want to be the living proof that you can do whatever the hell you want to do in life. And I'm going to do that with music. And I'm going to use my music to communicate that and inspire people and shit like that. And that happened. So I'm like, that's how I started. And yeah, that's the short story of how this began. Which is, when you think about it, it goes a bit full circle because then I started to make tutorials exactly to inspire people and to teach people and show people you can do it. And there was a period of my life where my music career when I forgot about all this. And I just wrote music by inertia without thinking of why I was doing it. And that was a very dark period I didn't like. So when I started this YouTube channel, I got back in touch with my main goal and drive, and that gave me an incredible amount of strength. So thank you guys for that. That was a long reply. By the way, sorry guys, if I'm doing like super long replies. I like to talk. Yeah, this isn't Zelda. I should update the okay, let me update this. Playing some video games. But yeah. Okay, now. Wow, 47 people watching. That's a lot. Okay. Yeah, I just replied to that. What woodwind libraries would you recommend? I only have a few. One is like East West Hollywood Orchestra, which I sometimes have like Composer Cloud activated. That's how I get. And also Cine Winds, which is okay. It's not the best woodwind library. I heard great things about the Berlin woodwinds from Orchestral Tools, but it's quite expensive. The last time we were here, Alex was using a whole bunch of spaghetti analogies to describe musical techniques. Everyone got hungry. Yep. My question: music. Do you know any good preset packs for synths like Serum for trailer music? Sadly not. I never looked into this. Maybe if I find any, I'll tell you. If I make any, I'll tell you. I might. Who knows? Thanks for the answer, Alex. Just been paranoid about sending my revised tracks back to labels because I'm not sure if I corrected them completely to their standards. So, hey, Aaron, that is a different thing. Like, if you're not aware if it's good for them or not, that's how it should be. Like, they're there to guide you. But if you're, if you're consciously doing something that the label do not want you to do, then they're gonna get mad. So, like, if you're honestly trying to do what they want you to do, but you are not getting it, that's okay. Their job is to direct you in the way, but you need to collaborate with that. Collaborate, understand what you're saying, imply that in your music. If you don't do that, then they will get mad, I suppose. Is this your next experiment about analyzing background of music video games? No, I can't analyze the games as I play. Hey Alex, I see you play Crash Bandicoot. Have you played Jack and Dexter, Ratchet and Clank? Sadly not. I didn't because when those games got popular, I didn't own a PlayStation 2. So after, like, I just got it way after, and then I was too late for get into the Jack and Dexter bandwagon. I love Biodynamics Custom 1 Pro. Okay, nice. British Gym. Okay, cool. You should be a composer of a company game. That's my goal. Have you ever tried to compose hip hop or trap? No, I'm not a huge fan of the website. Liam asking if my reviews are available. So Liam, I think I will make them available again. Maybe next week or the week after the next. They will come back, and I will make an announcement for those. The private lessons are currently not available either. They will come back as well. I do on and off periods with like private lessons and video like track reviews, but they're coming back. On the topic of overwriting, I'd say that every time that you add something, ask yourself if it makes the track better or worse, and if it serves a purpose. Thank you, Insane Snowman. I couldn't have put it better myself. Actually, I didn't think about this. This is the most obvious answer. But then it's like, that's something you should ask yourself every time you compose. I didn't think about this probably because that's something that comes automatic for me now. But yes, you should ask yourself whenever you want to add something to your track. It's like, okay, why do I want to to add this thing here. Well, I want to add that thing there. Will there be a 30k sub special? That's a good question, Nordic. I've been thinking about that, and I wouldn't know what to do with that. If you have ideas of what I could do for a 30k sub, let me know. But I don't know. Vladdy Master, how do I learn to hear which instruments are used and which notes are being played in a track which I want to remix or remake? Nice. I replied to this before, but I wish I had the track like to show you here, because it's weird to explain without a track or without a reference. And sadly, this track from Crash Bandicoot is not good enough because it's very simplistic to explain that. But basically what I do when I want to listen to or analyze people like music is I listen to every single voice. So for example, in Thor the Dark World, if you go listen to the main cover I made, like the mock-up I made, there's the main theme, there's a synth beat that kicks in and it does ba 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 ba, and you hear that on French horn in the main track. And that's one voice. There's also another voice on bass trombone that does ba 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 ba, and there's other voices as well of other instruments doing other things, or some instruments doing the main melody but on lower octave, stuff like that. What I do is I take conscience of that fact and I listen to the track, a specific beat of the track, and I try to focus only on one instrument. I notice, okay, there's a choir here. Let's intently listen to what the choir is doing, and I try to focus on that only. And of course it's not like it's hard, so I listen to a certain bit many times to figure out what the freaking choirs are doing. And once I do figure it out, because I was listening to the choir voice only, I write it, and then I listen to what the brass is doing, like the French horn or the bass trombone or the percussion are doing. So it's like listening intently to what one instrument is doing, one voice, voice by voice, like horizontally, not vertically, horizontally, for a bit of the track, then for the next bit of the track and stuff like that. And that's how I get it personally. It might be different for everyone, but you know. Sense Spider, just to follow up on the copyright question, I made a couple remixes using acapellas but changing up everything else. Would you have any tips on releasing them on YouTube in a legit way? Okay, that's different, because in that case you are actually using some music material which is straight out of the original track without permission, probably. In that case, that's different, because in my tracks I rewrite everything from scratch. So the content I did doesn't even, like, it cannot, and also the way I rewrite my tracks is very different. So it's transformative and it's not using any of the source material. When you're using source material, you might get the copyright issues, copyright strikes and stuff like that, and there's often nothing you can do about that. You can not monetize the video, and that normally will, like, if you don't monetize your videos, you will not get copyright issues normally, if I'm not wrong. Oh my god, okay, no. So there's that. You can also ask the permission for the original copyright owners. You can also like post it. What the? You can also post the track and tag it as unofficial remix or bootleg, and not monetize it. Just don't monetize it, because you don't own the copyright for what you're using, since you're just using the raw audio. Even if you change the whole track, even if you change the pitch and stuff like that, you're doing something illegal. Because in the YouTube terms, you just cannot use something unless you prove that you own the copyright or you were, they gave you permission to do that. So yeah, this game, man. Jesus. Do you use Contact plugin on FL Studio or other plugins packs? I use Contact, but also many other sample libraries, like outside of Contact, like the Boom libraries, Cinematic Traders Designed. You're gonna find a list of all the libraries I use the most in every single description of every single one of my videos, so you can check those there. Do you have any plans for making more tutorials on ambient fantasy stuff a la Jeremy Soul? Probably if I write more tracks like that, or if you have questions about that, let me know. Guys, like usually, Insane Snowman, usually my tutorials are, you know, mostly based on the stuff that I'm curious about, or that I discover where I compose my stuff. But sometimes when you guys ask me for something very specific, I'm like, oh, this will be very cool to cover. So if you want me to speak about something specific in the Jeremy Soul tracks, let me know, because if you ask me a cool question, I might just do a whole track based on that and a cool tutorial based on that. So it's like, if you leave me comments, guys, on YouTube, you're gonna win. Because I'm either gonna reply or I'm gonna make tutorials about the stuff you ask for, if it's interesting stuff. So might do another Jeremy Soul tutorial, probably. Who knows? I still haven't done an actual Jeremy Soul cover, where I just took one of these tracks and covered it. So that would be cool. Listen to range of music from any source. Yes. Wait. How do you make brass sounding with the fast attack? What is the library with the fast attack in brass? I think Caspian from Performance Samples is a great example, and use that in my Star Wars track. I published this. Ah, no. I used it in a Star Wars trailer track. Star Wars track, not trailer. Track I published today. Much of the brass there is Caspian. I'm so shit at this game, man. And the cool thing about Caspian or Performance Sample libraries is that their attack evolves or adapts to. Oh my god! It adapts to the way you write for them. So if you write short notes, it's gonna have a very strong and fast attack. If you write long notes, it's gonna be a sustained sort of like. Oh my god! Sound. Another great library with nice attack, I suppose, is Metropolis Arc 1. I swear to God, I'm gonna be able to do that eventually. I feel stupid and old and not being able to play video games anymore. Yes, cool. Now I cannot die. I can. Ah, okay. Let's die. A meetup. I don't know. Like 2 people would come at the meetup if I did that. Literally 2 people out of 30,000. Which record labels can a small bedroom orchestral sound producer get signed to? Please reply. The record labels which would use, like usually record labels in orchestral music are only trailer labels. Usually. There's no such thing as like a Monster Cat for orchestral music, or I don't know, Owl's Law or what it's called. Like all those electronic music labels. For orchestral, there isn't enough, like there's none. You're really like, there's Epic Music VN, but it's like, I don't know if they're trailer, well, they classify as, but usually like labels for orchestral stuff, it's like trailer music. Okay, now, which labels you could sign up? Oh my god, they're all gonna, okay. I'm done. When you ask yourself which label would use your music, you need to think about how good your music actually is, you know? Because a label's interest is, you know, having music on their albums which will get them to place on a trailer. So labels are not charities where they're like, I'm not saying this, by the way, to judge anyone. I'm just saying this to be clear, because I see this question so many times, and when I listen to the music of the people who ask, it's like not that good. So you need to understand, labels are not charities. They are not like just like using composers just to do them a favor. You are actually, if your music does a favor to the label by being in the label's albums, then yes, any label would want to have you. So you need to be aware and honest about how good your music is for the standards of the label you're trying to contact or to get into. Oh, B2 jump, not A. Okay, good. And if you say, I want to compose for Really Slow Motion, okay, you go and check out Really Slow Motion's music on YouTube and check out their releases and albums. And if you notice it sounds as good as yours, or yours is even better or more innovative, but still in their standards and stuff like that, then you contact them by email and they're surely gonna reply and be pleased that you contacted them. But if you're a beginner and your music doesn't really sound good, would not work well in a trailer and stuff like that, then no labels are gonna have you on board. And what you're gonna have to do is you just, you know, practice, learn, and compose. And there's many stages before, you know, getting to a label. Before you get to a label, oh, I need to avoid that guy. I cannot leap on him. Okay, good to know. Before you get on a label, you can get your music featured in music promoters like Epic Music. Fuck. God damn it, Crash. Like Epic Music World and places like that. So that's one, you know, one alley. There's also Audio Jungle. Like if you can get your music like placed, featured on Audio Jungle and sell a lot of music on Audio Jungle, that's another great a great goal or target, that means you're growing as a composer. And once you're like, you know, nailing the audio jungles, and once your music is getting played, like featured in the channels like Epic Music World all the time, getting a lot of views, that's probably the sign that your music is actually pretty freaking good. And you can finally go to the label and say, hey, I'm a guy who like has a, you know, 1 million listens on YouTube, and I sold 100 tracks on Audio Jungle, and my music sounds like this. Would you want to work with me? Or I'd like to work with you. What do you think? In that case, the label is gonna be like, oh, that's hot. We could use this guy. He would totally bring us some placements. And that is how it works, my friend. So that's the short answer to the labels. What do you think of always analyzing music when watching series of listening? I just noticed I always have to go back to hear what was said. Do you have the same issues? No, like in video games I do that a lot, but like if I'm, you know, watching the cutscene, no. But if I'm playing a video game, I would analyze the music. But a good thing to do, I'm gonna do a game over now. A good thing to do is to, like, if you really want to analyze the music, it's beautiful if you first watch the movie or play the game without being so critical about the music, and then you do a second playthrough or a second watch where you just focus on the music. And on this second watch, since you know the movie, since you already watched it and stuff. No! Well, on the second, you know, watch through, you are gonna notice how the music made the movie or game amazing on your first watch or play of it, you know. So that's what I recommend as well. What other questions do we have? It would also be something like the Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. I want to do with pre-recorded sounds. Wait, what was the question again? Have you done covers of James Horner? No, I haven't listened to a lot of James Horner's music, sadly. I'm wondering that Alex was a composer of Crash Bandicoot. That's why he's interesting about Dante. What? Sorry, I don't understand. How often do you use chords with notes outside of the scale you're in? This is painful to watch. So I hope that I borrowed like it depends. Architect. Again, the way I write music is a bit weird. So maybe sometimes I did that without even noticing, and that was a mistake. Other times I might have done it intentionally. And that is useful if you want to do a modulation where you change the scale of the song as the song plays. And I suppose there's some tracks where I did that. Probably. But right now I cannot think of which one. Oh yes, I made it. Probably in the landing there's some modulations like that, but I didn't write the landing, it was a cover. But probably, I cannot think of examples, but that's a good thing to do though. Like if you want to, like doing modulations in music, makes it sound very spicy and interesting. If you can do that, you just borrow chords from another scale and you just modulate. Hey, I want to make string runs and I just can get into the notes correctly. As a rule, semitones are used there, and this already complicates the task. Could you explain, and preferably by example? Please turn on the other machine track, Big Smoke. I can't do it right now because obviously I get copyright strikes and stuff like that if I do it now on stream. But string runs, if it means like the normal string runs, a good thing to do is to actually take a scale. Wait, where do I need to go now? Like if you want to do a good run, you can take a scale, like the C major scale, write it normally, and then stretch it and make it very fast, and link the notes and do some dynamic modulation with it, so dynamic wheel automation and velocity handling. And you're gonna have this C major scale that's something like that, and that's a run. A run. It's like a scale played very fast. That's one way in which you can do runs. Another thing you can do to do runs is to build patterns. So you can do a C major scale, but you go like 2 notes up, 1 note down, 2 notes up, 1 note down. So and you do that again. You stretch it and you do it very fast. And when I say stretching, I mean stretch the MIDI, and you use a run articulation if you have it. So it like plays all the notes very fast, and you get that sound. there's also other types of rounds, which like, you know, sort of things going on all over the track, accompanying a certain part. To do those, it's a bit of a more difficult thing, which is very, I still haven't mastered that myself. But to do like runs, to do transitions and stuff like that, you can do scales and make them faster. Have you ever dabbled with game audio middleware like Fmod? Creates really interesting composition challenges around adaptive music. That would be cool to see you work around. I haven't yet. There's a friend of mine who's called Jeremiah George who made a video about that. He composed like adaptive music onto Final Fantasy 15, and it was mind-blowing. With Fmod, I think, or Wise or something. And it was just freaking good. Very good. I haven't done that myself. Maybe I will eventually. I don't know. Play the original Contra while answering questions. I've never played that Contra game. And if I'm rubbish at playing Crash Bandicoot, I couldn't even imagine what I would be like by playing other games. Where do I need to go now? Oh, this is the new world. Okay. Okay, guys, we ran out of questions. I made it. I replied to everyone. Yes. Yay me. But I'm still losing at Crash Bandicoot. Damn it. Oh yeah, guys, if you have other questions, this is the time to ask them. If you actually don't have any other questions left, I can actually just hop off the stream right now. Because I don't think that watching me play Crash Bandicoot is actually entertaining. Rather, watching me die at Crash Bandicoot. And it's actually out of the scope of this channel. So guys, if you want to see me play more games, I actually have a gaming channel where I sometimes, not all the time, oh my god. Sometimes I stream there. And it's called Serious Lex. You're actually gonna find in the description of this live stream. The link to the gaming channel. And yeah, you can follow me there for this sort of stuff. Here on Alex Moukala, I'm only, from now on, only gonna do musical, like educational music content. This one video classifies as educational music video content. What? Educational music content? Because I'm replying to like music production questions. But basically here on Alex Moukala, I'm not, if everything goes correctly, I'm not gonna post my music or my covers ever again. I'm gonna post those on my new music channel called Alex Moukala Music. And there's a whole reason why I have so many YouTube channels, you know? And I can explain that to you if you want in this live stream. I mean, we're not talking about anything else, but there's a whole reason why I'm splitting, like Alex Moukala Gaming, Alex Moukala Music, Alex Moukala Tutorials. So it's like, I'm not, you know, like, crazy. It's just about branding. But let me reply a few more questions. When do you know when a track is done? I always find ways and to add this stuff to it. Bye, Norman. Okay, so when a track is done? That's a very tough thing. And for me, it feels like I need to force myself to say, okay, I'm done. And that's often when I'm like, okay, I nailed the challenge that I set myself with this track, or I nailed what I wanted to communicate. Like with every track, there's an intention for me. It's never like I'm just write music because I want to write music. I write music because I want to write something like this, or I want to write for something that would work for this game, or something that would work for this trailer, back when I did trailer music. It's never, I just want to compose because I want to compose. So that first thing helps me, like having that goal like that, helps me understand when I will have nailed something. Another thing is that... Oh, game over, okay. I was scared. What was that? I never seen that in the original game. Another thing is like understanding or appreciating that the track is good enough, you know? If you feel like the track, obviously any track that you complete, any piece of music, any piece of art is never finished, it's only abandoned, that's how they say. Because it could have always been done better. Every single track you're going to publish, no matter your level of skill, popularity, there's always going to be someone out there who tells you, oh, you could have mixed those horns a bit better, you know? Oh, the melody is boring. Oh, you could have added this, that. There's always going to be that guy. That guy lives inside your head, and he also lives in YouTube. There's always guys in YouTube comments leaving those stuff. But one thing you need to understand is that, you know, God's willing, you will write so many more pieces of music where you can actually tackle the shortcomings that were inside the last piece of music you published. first. So you don't need your track to sound perfect at the moment you finish it. You can say, okay, I did my best. I could have done a better job with the chord progressions. I'm gonna do that with the next track. Okay? That's more ideal than saying I want to do everything perfectly. Because in nowadays age, especially now in 2019, this wasn't true in 2006, but now writing like 10 pieces of music or publishing 10 pieces of music per year is not affordable anymore. You cannot, it's a luxury. You cannot do that anymore. Even bands like Muse have a hard time when like there is a new album, they have to like publicize it like crazy because people, every time there is a new artist releasing a new song. So if you take, I don't know, 5 months to publish a track, you're gonna lose your audience. So no, just don't dwell on a track for too long. That's not good. What do you put on your mastering chain? Usually isotoposon. Then I also added like I usually have an EQ to remove or to shape the track in a certain way, like maybe increase a bit of the highs or remove a bit of the mids. Then I use isotoposon usually, which has like an EQ, an exciter, compressors and limiters and imagers, so that kind of stuff. And if I want to be lazy, I will add OTT. Ever tried doing a restoration of pop records? I think I tried once and I failed. I might do it once again, I don't know. My man, can I post my new remix to tell me about production stuff? Dark Matters, this is not the stream for that. Sometimes I do the streams where I feedback your music, and that's what they're called. When I will do that, any, never seen any, never opened any, so I cannot really tell. But I've seen the results of people taking the course, the Evident course, and some are very, very astounding. Some people didn't get much value from them, but I suppose it's because they didn't apply what they studied. So whatever course you choose to get, always remember that you need to apply what you hear. So it's good to, like, at the end of each chapter, like, practice what you just read about. If you neglect that, no course in hell or no course in the world will actually teach you anything. So I can only vouch for the eminence, but whatever course you want to get it, but study it for real and practice it. Since I've got the perfectionistic problem that's keeping me from making even one piece of music, that's something like the perfectionism demon is something I struggle with every single day. And every single track I finish is a pain to let it go, you know? Always, like, guys, like this track I published today, the Star Wars track. Understand, like when I make a track, I export the audio and then I have to bounce all the stems for my Patreon page. For the people who support me on Patreon, I'm gonna leave them to, like, I leave the downloads for the project stems and all the things. So I have to bounce all the stems. Then I have to make the video where I show the MIDI visualizer and everything, okay? And exporting the stem take a lot of time. Making a video takes a lot of time. Exporting the video on my laptop, rendering takes quite some time, okay? So with that aside, with that information, yesterday, I was meant to publish the Star Wars track, which I published today. And it was late because I kept on hearing problems or mistakes in the mix, in the master, in the full track. And I kept on going back, open FL Studio, re-export the track, put it back in the Adobe Premiere project, re-export the video, render the video, and then I would play it and I would notice, oh shit, I did this mistake in the rendering, and I open Premiere. So it's like, and I'm talking about stupid mistakes, like, hey, the image, the cover is a bit too much to the left, or a mistake like, hey, the violin in this 1 second of the song has a dynamic which is too strong, I should lower it with the MIDI control commands. Or, hey, there's one note in 2,000 notes, one trumpet note that is flipping me off. I need to fix that. And I'm not proud to admit that, but I went and I opened up a studio and I fixed that one note out of 2,000 because it was flipping me off. And I had to re-export everything. So that is how perfectionistic I am. So when I say these things, believe me, guys, it's not like I don't struggle with them. I do. And today, even the track I published, like it is now, when I listen to it, I hear a lot of imperfections. But I decided to let it go. Because that's what you have to do. Like, you cannot afford be so perfectionistic. Also, because all the things that you're, raving about with your perfectionism, lots of people are not even gonna notice. Many of you are not gonna notice all the biggest problems I see in my Star Wars track. Because when we do something, we know exactly. It's like looking at ourselves in the mirror naked. We know all of our imperfections, like a map of the world. But when other people see us dressed and well groomed, they might not notice some aspects of us. And you know, the fact that they don't see us every day naked also helps to, you know, not having them notice certain things. Just like when you compose a track, you know every detail because you composed it. You know the project file, you know every single nuance, every single sound. But when someone else listens to it, he will not notice that until the 500 listen. Probably. So, you know. Sorry for the long rambling on that. But guys, this is like, I'm gonna keep my tutorials short. My tutorials are gonna be to the point and straight and 5 minutes, whatever the hell you want. But these sort of live streams are gonna be like me unleashed, where I don't try to like reply to the questions in 5 minutes. Because you see, like, I believe certain things cannot be learned unless we discuss them with a certain amount of depth, in my opinion. But yeah. Hello, I want to be an orchestral composer, but I only know very basic music theory. I try to using the free trial programs like FL Studio, but I don't understand how anything works. I'm so lost. I was as well crunchy as I began making music in the same exact environment or in the same exact condition as you, because I was just like you a few years ago. Thank God you have my YouTube tutorial channel, which is gonna help you figure out these things. For me, I didn't have it. There wasn't an Alex Moukala guy who was giving me all the answers on all these things. Well, not all the answers, but most of the answers. So, you know, the internet is amazing in the way it gives you access to all these resources. You also have courses. If you want a good free thing to start to understand FL Studio, check out Seamless R FL Studio Basics video. It's gonna help you. And if you know basic music theory, that is also gonna help you. Like, I always say I don't know music theory, and that is true, because when I compose, I don't really think of theory, but I know the basics, and those are things you need to know to compose. Just tuned in rather late, I guess, but if I could make a video from the first note of you right until a decent sounding mix and master track, how many hours would it roughly be? It'd be interesting. Makis, there's already videos like that on YouTube, except for the mixing and mastering part. The best I made, I suppose, was the video I made for Verge to Infinity. But the videos I made, like the live streams where I compose like that, the first episode is free for everyone. But if you want to see the subsequent episodes where I compose the rest of the track, those are on Patreon. Yeah, but the Verge to Infinity, for example, was composed in like, I think 3 episodes or something, and it's like 8 hours, I suppose. Although it's like the mixing and mastering part, I didn't record that. But that's like, I say, 2 more hours or 1 hour, depending on like the track itself. But you can see it, you know. Just there's a whole playlist of my track from scratch videos on my YouTube homepage. Jesus! I want to say about the template. What simple orchestral song piece using sections? When you have to set your template, you have to think of the way you compose, because it's your template. And a template is just a collection of instruments already routed, ready to use, and they must be the instruments you use the most. It's like having a band and a studio, which is yours, and you don't want to plug the guitars every single time. You know you're gonna use the guitars, and you know you're gonna use those amps you use all the time, so why the hell should you like run into the studio and plug them all the time? That takes a lot of time, so it makes more sense to leave them plugged, so that when you walk into the studio with your band, you're ready to go. Your template needs to be the same. So just set it in a way where all the patches that you use the most, usually, are already loaded, and the mixer is already organized accordingly to the way you compose your music. So there's no guide. Oh my god, there's no guide to templates. But that's what I do. If you see my template, that's how it is. I usually, yeah, that's how I do it. Are you a fan of Yoko Shimomura? Yeah, I even made like a cover on one of her tracks, like the Apocalypse Noctis from Final Fantasy 15. Along with Nobuo Uematsu, she's one of my favorite composers. Like, I much prefer Yoko Shimomura and Nobuo Uematsu rather than Hans Zimmer and John Williams, probably, you know? Much like, and that's funny because people think that Hans Zimmer is my #1 inspiration, which is not like that. I'm a huge fan of Hans Zimmer, but Japanese composers, man, they're something else. Especially the ones who scored the games from my childhood. So yeah, huge Yoko Shimomura fan. Damn it. I can relate to that so much. I had another channel where I would re-render an entire video because I needed to lead. Yeah, man. Nordic, when you finish a track, do you have someone you show it to first, or do you sit on it a few days and then listen to it and renew yourself? What? So Nordic, what I like to do also to avoid perfectionism is give myself some deadlines, and I'm gonna do that way more this year. So I will try to publish a track every week. And come on. And sometimes, okay, game over. Okay, I get it. Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna do it again. Sometimes that means that maybe I have to publish the track on Wednesday or Friday, and it's Wednesday morning, and I'm like, okay, I have second thoughts on the mastering and stuff like that, but there's no time. I will publish it anyway. So that's how I do it sometimes. Sometimes if I have the time to like second guess myself, like think of the track, yeah, surely I would just let it sleep for a few days and go back to it the day after to see if it still sounds good. That's actually good, but it's not a luxury that all of us have. And I highly recommend you guys to set yourself some deadlines, even just for yourself, and decide to complete and publish a track every week or every whatever rows your boat, like every month. You know, just have a deadline so you know that you are staying on track and doing this exercise of being creative once every so often without being perfectionistic. So that wasn't a real answer, but you know, it's more than that in my opinion. But yeah, sometimes I might bug some friends of mine and ask them for feedback, but I am often the guy giving feedback now. Because on my tutorial channel, people are always like, hey Alex, can you listen to this, that, 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 that? I'm like, oh fuck, let me breathe. So yeah. And also, I tend to only ask for feedback when I really want it. I don't do this thing where I ask for feedback just because I want other people to listen to my music. I ask when I'm like very doubtful or something. So that means I ask people who are way better than me, who I know will have something to say about the track. Or I might ask people who are not good composers or are not composers at all, because I want to have the feedback of someone who doesn't know music. You know, hey, well, does this track sound heavy? Does the melody sound too crazy? And stuff like that. Usually non-musician will be more, you know, understand that more than the musicians. Well, maybe one time I asked a friend of mine for feedback, and this guy works for Hans Zimmer, and I told him, what do you think about the orchestration? Because I knew he's one of the best orchestrators I know. And I was like, give me all you got, don't hold anything back, tell me about how much this is shit. And that was rough to say, and you know, it's like, I was ready to receive the bombs, so like, Alex, you suck. But, you know, with those feedbacks from people who actually, you know, are good at the stuff, you will grow. So that was the guy who told me about how I did all the panning wrong. My friend Antje Rosman, who works for Hans Zimmer. So yeah, feedback, I asked for it, but nah, just when I really want it. When you're mixing, how do you know what instruments need an EQ, compressor, sidechain, reverb, etc.? Wow, man, that would be an hour reply. It's not, just know it's not, I'm just gonna say, it's not a rule. It's not like, hey, this needs that. Sidechain, EQ, all those things. The cool thing about all these mixing units is that what they actually are in the end is all volume balancing. It's all volume balancing. An EQ is nothing more than a way to reduce the volume of certain bands or augment the volume of certain bands. A compressor reduces or augments kind of the volume beyond a certain threshold, or like it's like just, you know, it manages the volume pretty much. A sidechain does that. Like when the percussion play, for example, reduce the volume of the brass. That's sidechain, but it's still volume. So it's all volume except for reverb. Reverb is a bit different, and each of these units will give you a different result. Oh my god. Okay, and you can, like, I have a whole playlist called how to mix and master orchestral music, where I talk about this way more in depth. Each video is like 30 minutes long, so you might want to check that out, Guido. But if you don't know what those things do, don't use them. You know, like, I mean, use them, but maybe go read what they do, what they're useful for, and stuff like that, and then you can use them in a way to like understand what you're doing, and in a way that solves a problem because you know how you can solve it. Never use compression just because you feel people's talking about it without knowing what you're doing. Long tutorials don't hurt. We are here to learn, so attention span is not a problem. The ones looking for short entertainments have other channels. DJ Adam, that's been my thought for the longest time. Sadly, YouTube does not agree. And so I will have to keep the tutorial short. But I think I will make courses eventually. I'll probably, like, you know, also, like, I will keep on making long tutorials eventually, but way less often. And basically, I'm gonna give the same value, but it's gonna be split on different videos. So, like, for example, I made a 2 steps per mile track. I am probably not gonna make a tutorial where I'm like, oh, let me explain in an hour why this track is amazing, but I'm gonna make, like, I don't know, 5. Like, 1, how to make 2 steps per mile strings, and 1, how 2 steps per mile sound amazing with brass. I don't know, something like that. So I'll give it some thought, but YouTube penalizes you if it's not exactly like this. But if I make short videos, like long videos, YouTube might penalize my channel. And if I make short videos, YouTube will boost my channel. It's not exactly how it works. So it takes a long time to explain this, but just take it as that. That's the reason why I need to do the short versions. But you guys are still gonna get all the whole value, and also expect some courses from me with long form videos with like assignments and and stuff. Mixing epic boom sounds. What do you mean epic boom sounds, Daniel? If you can clarify. Nordic, you can send me your tracks for feedback. Thank you. I'll consider that, but yeah, as I told you, I don't do that often. What I did wrong with the panning was use it. I made a video about this. There is a shortcut on next checkpoint. Oh, really? But I almost made it. So what I did wrong with the panning is use it. And Jesus! Because orchestral libraries come pre-panned, and they're recorded in such a way that maybe the strings are recorded with a microphone, which is like one to the left and another microphone on the right, and the both signal is blend together, so the sample sounds stereoified, kind of. And when you just pan that whole sound, it's gonna sound weird. It's a weird explanation. The video I made explains this better, but basically, since the libraries are pre-panned, if I force extra panning on that, what the fuck? How? What? I just got wombo comboed. If I do extra panning on that, it's gonna destroy the balance that it was intended. And it's gonna actually not only move the instrument, it's gonna move the whole signal of the room's reflection, so it's like panning the room and not the instrument, which is crazy. So it makes more sense to actually... Oh my god. It makes more sense beyond this checkpoint, I don't know. To actually not pan, or to do some like... to reverse the polarity. It means reverse the panning of the signal itself. Okay, I cannot do this level, guys. But panning is not necessarily bad. You can, like, if you want to get a realistic sound, then it might be bad to pre-pan libraries. But if you're trying to write something like trailer music where realism is not necessary, but you need to have a huge sound in whatever way without caring about realism, then you can pan it there. It's not a problem. Oh my god, you guys are still here. Oh my god, there's still 40 people. Wow. What can I do to start my career as a composer? I'm almost done with my high school and it's my biggest dream and goal. Crunchy. Get good at music. Whatever, if you need, like, get good at music and do whatever you have to do. Like, I mean, if you need to have a day job to afford to stay alive while you develop your music talent, have that day job. Don't put yourself in the condition where you cannot take the time to really learn and practice music making. And what I'm saying is that, like, there's some, like, there's not many people doing that. But some of us, I dropped my day job in university, and that's true. But I lived at my parents' place because of that for a few years while I was developing my musical talents. I was lucky to have, parents that allowed me to do that, although they kind of, hated me for it. But now they understand and they're like, I appreciate how far I come. But it's not true for everyone. Some people cannot, they maybe don't, their parents won't pay for they won't have them in the household after a certain age. I don't know. If that's the case for you, there's nothing wrong with having a day job and living a normal life, but every day, waking up at like 1 hour earlier, 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. to actually spend 1 hour making music and then going about your day. Like, the idea is to live a life in a way that your survival is guaranteed and beyond your music, but use every free moment and create free moments by, not going out with your friends and waking up 1 hour earlier, going to bed early and stuff like that, using these moments to make music. And I'm saying this because, people sometimes they drop their job, whatever, and then they are put in a position where if they don't write a song that, gives them a lot of income, they are not going to make it as a human. So maybe when they're in that position, they will have to maybe write music in a genre that they don't like. And maybe they have to write generic music for the jungle for most of their time, and they never find the time to actually go and delve on the genre they actually want to tackle, or on the difficulty level or complexity of music that they want to tackle. Because if they did that, they would die of starvation because people are not paying them for studying music. And you don't want to find yourself in that environment. If you want to, get to a certain level, like I don't know, score a Final Fantasy game, that implies you learning quite a few things. And if you put yourself in a position where you cannot afford to actually invest time into learning stuff, but you actually have to cram out music, royalty-free music all the time to get by, then you will not learn, and that's not good. So it's best to have a day job and create time to make the music you want to create, or to find a smart way to monetize your music as you learn it, or something like that, But yeah, like, the number one advice I'd give you though is like, try to create as much space for music in your days as possible. Wake up, like, I'm not kidding, guys. Like, I woke up at 5 a.m. and I dropped my day job. Like, when I began making music, I didn't have commitments, but I still woke up at 5 a.m. to compose until the evening, and then went to sleep early and woke up at 5 a.m. again the day after. And this is without commitments. That is the amount of dedication I had. And that's what you need to have too. Because if you don't, there's gonna be someone else who does those sort of crazy sacrifices while you play like video games. Like, I'm doing now, by the way. But I've done so many years of sacrifices. So now I'm in the position where I can relax a little bit. But in the beginning, man, I haven't, like, the reason why I'm shit at video games now is that I haven't played them for so long. So, and that was because I was focused on developing my talent and all those things. So do whatever is in your power to make more music, and the music you write, try to write the music that challenges you to like go forward as a composer, to like do things that you're normally not able to do, that are difficult and stuff like that. If you just follow what is pleasant, you will not learn and you will not grow, or you will, but very slowly. So that is some food for thought. And that was, again, a very freaking long answer. But it's very important that people get this. Okay. With epic boom sound, I'm talking those low frequency hits, sub hits. Oh, well, just leave space for them. Don't have anything else going on in the low end, and they will come through. If they don't sound good, maybe the source is not good. So you can enforce a boom by like adding, like, have lots of percussion play one hit, like or something like that, and then put a lot, like a big low pass filter on that percussive hit of like the many layers, and you will get a boom like that. And also, if you like, just leave that on the low end, and that's the only sound that is in the low end. If it has a lot of tail as well, like maybe you can create tail with yourself with some reverb, and you add some low pass on that, like stuff like that, you will get a boom that is like thick but also long, and that's how you do it. Also, if you have something going on your low end, maybe you have double basses playing with the booms, that's cool, but you can chain the double basses so that when the boom comes in, the double basses get, removed. They duck out until the boom doesn't stop or something like that. But yeah, if you want to create good booms, have loads of percussive hits layered together, put a low pass filter on all of those, add reverb and put a low pass filter on the reverb. If you can also compress it if you want, and that's how you get the big sound and the full tail. Alex, how do you navigate the music industry? Yeah. How do you navigate the music industry today? Do you work full-time with music? And what is this? I don't remember Crash Bandicoot being Ninja Gaiden. Yeah, man. Crazy. Personally, I'm in a very particular position where I, before starting this YouTube, I was actually, all I did was compose music, and that's all I did. I'm music for traders. And in that case, I told you many times the story of how that went, how that became, how that began, how that worked, how to get in touch with labels. So I'm not going to repeat that here. But now I don't, I'm as much as a teacher as I am a composer. And I also am a personal brand. Ooh, that was close. He didn't wombo combo this time. I'm also a personal brand. So sometimes people contact me because they saw me on YouTube. And this could be like movie makers, some video game developers, and like, hey, I saw your video and you seem like a nice person and I like your music. You know what you're doing. Do you want to work on my movie or game? That happens. But that's because I develop a personal brand. And I think it's the next frontier to get yourself known as a composer. And I'm probably going to make a video about this eventually. And this ties to why I started a new channel today, like my Alex Moukala music channel, by the way, which I'm going to talk about later on in later videos. But I suppose having a strong brand like this online helps. Another thing, going to meetups for filmmakers, video game developers and stuff like that, and being nice. No, it was the bit I lost before. Oh, also, sadly, knowing people helps. So if you know no one, you're like, oh, thank you. But wow. But make friends. Just make friends with composer, with movie makers, even the guys who are not big yet. Make friends with the people who are just ambitious as you are. And I mean it. I don't hate, but I don't like to waste time on people who are, dreaming and say, hey, I'm gonna make films, but then they don't do shit. Or composers who say, hey, I'm gonna be a professional composer, but then you see them and they don't do shit, and they don't challenge themselves, and they don't take, they're not disciplined, and they don't really try. I don't like to lose time with these people. And when I find one, I'm like, okay, well, good for you. You do your thing, but I don't. But when I see someone who's really fired up, who's really doing it, is really doing the best they can, putting all the effort they can, doing creative work, even if they're not famous, I will become friends with that person, stick with them, give them advice, be a valuable influence to them. I just met a guy 3 weeks ago at the Starbucks here in London, and he was playing his guitar at Starbucks. Instead, it was on the lower floor, the radio wasn't there, so they let him play his guitar, and it was really good. And he was I was like, fuck, he's actually showing up, he's doing his thing in public, he's actually pretty good, he's playing stuff that people enjoy, and he's being brave about it. And I talked to him, like, hey, so what's up, man? What do you do? Do you have an Instagram or something? And and we talked for a bit, and I gave him some advice. Oh my god. Okay, I'm so rubbish at Crash Bandicoot. Apparently, my Switch decided to crash Bandicoot. But yeah, we talked. And I'm gonna play some Mario now. Why not? We talked, and I gave him some advice, and we became friends, we connected. Sometimes I meet this guy, and I give him music advice, marketing advice, Facebook, Instagram, what have you, everything. And yeah, and that happens because I saw this guy, I respected his work ethic, and as I talked with him, I respected him even more. And who knows, maybe if this guy becomes famous, he's gonna remember me, and that might be a good connection. But I didn't become friends with him because I wanted to have a good connection. Just became friends with him because I respected him. And yeah, okay, what? Okay. No, I'm actually gonna play some Smash Bros. Let's do Smash Bros. But yeah. As for the film, that would be the same film world, I guess, probably. So just go to these events, bond with the filmmakers, get your brand known on the internet, get in touch with people making great shit. Maybe you can contact people making fan films for Star Wars, and you have a Star Wars cover, and you're like, hey, I love your fan film, and I composed a Star Wars cover. If you want to use it in a trailer for your next film, feel free. Just give people value, and if they become big, they might remember you, and they might tell you, hey, we're actually starting this project for LucasArts, and we need music. Do you want to make music for us? That's the thing. So yeah. Anyway, guys, let's do the last few questions because we've been here for 2 hours, almost 1 hour and a half, and I think I'm not gonna be able to reply to them anymore if I play some Smash Bros. But okay, I'm gonna do full questions now. I will be joining the Marines and actually start truly learning music after my military career is over, so my university funds will be funded, meaning I'll fully be able to dedicate my time learning. Man, you have to do your thing, but don't forget about your dreams, and if you can, where you can, just write music, even 30 minutes a day or an hour a day, that's best. What's else on your jungle? 1564 clean guitar songs for commercials. Just go on Jungle. There's a cool thing called top featured music or top sellers. You go there, you listen to what they are, why they are selling, you notice the correlation between them, and you just create something similar, and you publish it with the right title, and that's how you get sales on the jungle, for the most part. Which for me is not fun, but you can totally do that. Thank you, just popping to say I appreciate all you do. Thank you. Kira Boom, any advice for trying to find your own style? It's a good idea to make a lot of songs quickly to experiment. So Kira, that's a good question. I found that to find your own style, it's very, it comes once you definitely write more and more and more and more music. The more music you write, the more you're going to notice certain things that you tend to do in all of your songs. Or when you compose, whenever you compose, you might feel the pull or the motivation or you might feel seduced by the idea of doing specific things frequently, or to write melodies in a certain way or stuff like that. That might be a thing when you compose. If that happens, and that happens a lot to me, if that happens, like you're composing, and that happened to me when I was making electronic music. Before making orchestral music, I tried to, become an EDM producer. And every time I used to write these melodies, which were very storytelling and long and emotional chord progressions in EDM music. And because of them, I wasn't able to get a sound that was like EDM banger, but it was more like a soundtrack. And I was like, why the hell can't I write an EDM banger? And I couldn't resist the temptation of the urge of doing some storytelling with my music or writing melodies like that. So I was like, you know what? And maybe that's just my style, Now, and it was, because now I'm composing soundtracks and I'm pretty good at it, like the music I make now. As for the music I make now, many times, there's one thing I do, which is if I have a part of my structure split in two parts, right? A melody with 2 repetitions. What I find myself doing most of the times, without even trying to do it, is I find myself on every repetition of my melody changing the main instrument that is playing that melody. It's something I just feel makes sense to me, and I like to do it. And that's how I get my... I think that makes my style or makes my track sound like Alex Moukala, for sure. What the hell? So like the goal is to not resist the temptation to do things in the way your intuition suggests you, even when you want to fit in. You're going to be tempted of the idea of fitting in. Like, hey, I want to write EDM music, but I can only write soundtracks. Well, that's what your intuition is telling you. It's telling you write soundtracks, but you want to write EDM music because you want to fit in that niche. But if you don't resist and just do what your heart tells you to do, every time you compose, you're going to notice your style. It's going to come out. Just like your accent comes out when you speak different languages language without trying too hard to sound like the proper speaker of the language. So that was a bit of a long reply, but you know, so those things you're gonna notice them way more when you compose more. Nice to hear your answers. Have a nice weekend, and don't forget to drink water. It's been a while. I haven't seen you drink any. You're right. Orchestral hip-hop percussion. I don't know. I never did that. Sadly. But yeah, guys. Last round of, like, last 3 questions. Go. You have the last 3 questions, then I'm gonna leave. This has been very cool, though. I think I'm gonna leave it on YouTube if you guys want it to stay here. Viewable for everyone. But, yeah. I don't see any other questions popping. So I suppose I can wrap it up now. Okay, 1. How would you create a composition without melody? Does that mean chords have to evolve continuously? So Gabriel, if you're referring to today's video, that video, like the background stuff in that video was composed along with the main melodies. It's not like I composed the whole thing without melody. In the video, I just took away all the main melodies, but I wrote them together. So sometimes, like, you know, it's good to compose both. Like, what I like to do is to start from the chord progression, but then I write the melody on top of that to contextualize more, and then I go forth. But you can totally write a composition without chord progressions, without melodies, but it's not something you have to do. Any advice for someone waiting to switch from one DAW to another? Wanting to switch from one DAW to another. My advice would be to consider why you want to do that. Like, is that a very, like, I don't know, like, it depends, like, the DAW you should use depends on how you compose music. If I can recommend you FL Studio, if you like to have a visual approach to how you compose, and if you like to compose with the piano roll a lot, way more than composing by recording yourself. In that case, I highly recommend FL Studio. Also, if you like to delve into sound design in a very nerdy way, FL Studio has some very nice plugins for that. One is called Patcher, allows you to build circuits with your VST plugins, which is crazy. But yeah, that's why I recommend FL Studio. That's also other reasons why I do it. But like, if you're the kind of composer, I recommend it for that. But if you want to switch DAW, I highly recommend you to ask yourself, why do you want to switch? Is it just because someone told you, oh yeah, Reaper is better? Or just because you saw someone like Hans Zimmer using Cubase? If that is the only reason, I don't think it's a good one. If you instead feel like you're not comfortable with the DAW you're using for some reason, and you want to explore other DAWs, then it's a whole different thing. And my advice is to actually inquire, like, understand what you don't like about your DAW and try to find a DAW which is great at that thing that this one DAW you're using is lacking. So, yeah. Last question. Do you still make track reviews? I'm gonna make them in the future. Hey, Niv. Man, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for the message. And Niv, I want to, like, acknowledge you for being one of my subscribers who's always there. Like, I notice you, man. Like, because YouTube, you know, of course, there's many people writing comments all the time. And many faces who I surely forget. But yours always pops up first when I release a tutorial, because you leave comments all the time. Or when I started that YouTube channel, like the Creative Matters podcast, you were one of the very few first subscribers, even before the new interviews were out. Or when I started my Alex Moukala music channel today, like yesterday, and I published it on the community tab of my YouTube, which not everyone watches. You were one of the first subscribers, so you're really following me, really passionate about my work, and I'm highly grateful for that. I'm highly grateful for everyone who follows me, really. Like, for you guys who've been here in the live stream, you guys who leave comments on the YouTube tutorials. But most especially, I'm very grateful for the people who are not here only for the tutorials, but also for me, the person, or me, the music maker. So Niv is one of those, and I just wanted to acknowledge you, man. Like, it really means a lot. So thank you. Now, guys, last question. The last question, which will pop now, will be replied by me. and then I will go. I will, because it's quite late now. Fuck, it's 7 p.m. Oh my god. Okay. Oh no, it's back. It's back. Oh my god. I hate that guy. Crazy stalker. Oh my god, that went from wholesome to creepy. And I died. Ah, nice. Very good. I suppose we could end the live stream now with this game over. That would be very symbolical. But yeah, for those of you who couldn't tune in, I think I'm gonna leave this as a recording on my YouTube channel, so anyone can see it anytime. But yeah, like okay, I'm gonna go, guys. Thank you for joining. Thank you for what's your biggest goal for this year? Oh, I think my biggest goal is to rebrand myself musically and get my separate music account to a place where I wouldn't say in the number of subscribers, but I want to get to the point where when I publish a track, it gets way more attention than it does now. When I publish a tutorial now, if it's a good one, it gets 10,000 views in like 2 days or 3 or 4. I want to get that for my tracks, for most of my tracks, in the same amount of days. And that's going to require some branding changes, which is why I started a new channel for music, which you can subscribe now in the description. You're going to find the link. But that's it for this video, guys. I hope you learned something of value. And I'm going to see you next week with the tutorial this time, as usual. So thank you for joining, and bye-bye.